We are going to be expanding a little bit on last week's topic that we did on why you could be doing all of the right things and your body still isn't responding the way that you think it should be or you want it to be. And Doug is here with me again today, and we're going to be diving into that a little bit more. I didn't have you introduce yourself last week. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Grant, Neve's dad. And really, the history is interesting because you never know as a parent, what's going to happen with your children and that. And the main thing I've learned is that your children will follow more what you do than what you say. And there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that for everyone that's a little more mature in age like me, I understand it, but you'd wish if there's one thing you could do to go back in time, it would be to do more of the things that you would want your children to do, not just speak them. And so with that, all of their children, Nevaeh, being her only daughter, and her boys it led into a fitness, healthy lifestyle. And the has taken it a step further with Balanced Babes. And I think that it's just one of the most exciting things out there. And the cool thing about her is that the advantage she has over me and a lot of other people is her age. And with my background, it took 30 years of being a personal trainer, have my own one-on-one training center before you could do virtual, that wasn't even an option then. And then moving into where some of those people that I was taking care of I had no clue that some of the clients that I had as a personal trainer actually were friends with some NBA players or people that had extremely big businesses, millionaire type things. And but because we had a motto to treat every person as if they were a rock star, like literally treat them as if it was, your biggest uh, boy or fan girl crush on someone, how would you treat them? And we had that rule in place. Because of that, it paid off. And it paid off big because one time a guy that was there that was, sometimes a pain actually. And we just had to have meetings about, okay, keep positive attitude with this guy, like treat him as a rock star, treat him as a rock star. Happened to be his best friend was an NBA player, and he invited him to come and me to help him because he had some issues due to his blood. And this client knew that I looked at blood different than the medical community. And so he referred him, and that referral led to some other players, Charles Barkley, people are somewhat familiar with, and led to the NBA saying, we want to hire you as the first nutritionist ever in the NBA. And so from there, it went on with professional athletes, but I realized my real niche and calling in life was to help health professionals be able to be holistic, to have health professionals have everything they need to help the patients be able to reach optimal health. And I realized that health professionals, whether they're a chiropractor, a surgeon, a trainer, a nurse, whatever it is, they all have their specialty. And so just like most of the trainers are on here, their specialty is nutrition and exercise. Well, chiropractors are adjustments, right? Surgeons are doing surgery, but very few of them would be holistic. And very few of them would say, okay, I'm not the world leading expert in nutrition and exercise because I'm a surgeon, but I'm going to learn enough and have a system in place to help my patients with that. Or work with someone that I can refer in that area. And so that was my big aha moment that my calling in life with business is to help people, health professionals be more holistic, give them all the tools so they can help the patient or the client reach optimal health, which means mindset, nutrition, exercise, and specific supplementation. And so that's why we created my company today, Optimal Health Systems. And the thing that Nevaeh grew up, from the bottling from, probably way too young to be doing it, all the way through the doctor seminars, being, there through all of this. Her knowledge at her age, is greater than most that are in their 40s or 50s because she started so young of sitting in the seats, at these seminars as we're training the doctors and other health professionals. And so that's kind of a different way to explain my background, but along the way it came traveling to Germany to learn more about the blood, traveling to Russia to help train the athletes there to actually train without drugs and that, because when the eastern countries, became more capitalistic and stuff, they didn't have the access anymore to the steroids and that like they did before, and so they had to learn to do things naturally. So along the way came great training, great education, great opportunities to make the systems to be able to help. And what we've learned in the last 2 years, though, is that it's much easier to take trainers who already have the foundation of nutrition and exercise. That's what they're about. Like that is their specialty, and help them with the other things. Here's blood work. Here's how to look at blood work nutritionally and still support, the medical doctor when it's time for them to get involved and look at it from a prescription diagnostic standpoint or disease, actually being able to say that people have a disease, right? Where they're doing that and be able to help from the supplementation end to do it based on data, not just, hey, yeah, take your creatine or whatever it might be. And because of that, we started focusing more on personal trainers to help them with the system so that they could help their clients reach their goals faster, and also help the trainers be able to sustain themselves as an actual business, when in reality, out of all the health professionals, trainers had the least amount of longevity. We call it LTV, lifetime value. And so that was why we started focusing with them. And so for everyone that's on here that's not a trainer, the importance of that background is that when you're with someone like in the Balanced Babe or some of these other groups like that, but mainly the Balanced Babe, you're getting a trainer that's different from everyone else. You're getting a trainer that says, you know what, we're going to open ourselves up to be educated in areas that they didn't train us on at ISSA or the certification, NSM, whatever it is that they got their certification from. And we're going to open ourselves up so they become a part of Balanced Babe to get this education on how to do the blood work, how to recommend all these things, and do that on top of just nutrition and exercise programs. So whether you're a trainer or you're actual someone looking at becoming a client of Balance Babe, it's important to know that background, that you're with people that are committed to be holistic in your goals to reach optimal health. As the truth is, as Nevaeh teaches, really it's about who you're becoming, and are you doing everything you need to achieve that. And many times when you're doing what you feel you need to do to reach optimal health and you're not getting the results, it's one missing link, and you need professionals to be able to say, hey, let's get the data to find out what that missing link is and be able to fix it, so all of a sudden you get the results you were hoping for.
Lovely. So overall, he's kind of the man that started a lot of the nutrition and the training for a lot of the bigger companies and a lot of the bigger health professionals and sports professionals, and the person behind all of our different supplementation and knowledge there. If you missed some of that, that was kind of a quicker recap of what he was going over. Now there's going to be a few questions that we're going to run through today with a lot of the knowledge that Doug has on just blood work that he's done, kind of talking about how he was one of the main people that started looking at blood work from a holistic standpoint. That meant kind of giving women a different point of view on blood work as well too, and some different things that could be going on in their bodies. And last week, if you were on the call, he answered these questions in a little bit more of a simple, broad answer. And we're going to dive into those a little bit today. And one of the first questions that we went over was, why aren't calories the whole picture when you're trying to lose fat or trying to gain muscle? And what is actually more important than the calories? And the biggest thing that we went over was the nutrient absorption. Nutrient absorption is way bigger than calories in versus calories out when you're trying to lose fat or gain muscle. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Specifically with nutrients absorption, what do you feel like are the main nutrients that need to be being absorbed to the best of their ability to be able to see the progress that you're wanting, whether that is fat loss or muscle growth? What are the key nutrients that we need to see being absorbed better than any of the other ones for the calorie deficit or calorie surplus to work better?
Okay, great question. And so the two-part answer to that is, the first is that nutrient absorption is everything. It is the most important thing you can worry about as a person just out in the world trying to be able to have optimal health is absorption of nutrients. Even before, and I know I catch flack from this, even before you fix your diet, you should worry about absorption. Because even if I don't have the best diet in the world and I start digesting my food better and absorbing the nutrients, it also means I'm getting rid of the toxins better. So before anything, I'm going to start digesting my food better, taking Digestamil as I'm working on my diet to, eat more whole foods. And this is such an important thing to understand. It is what kept my job in the MBA. It's what's been the main focus for the doctors. And just yesterday, we were on a call with the US military, like top 4 people in the US military when it comes to the nutrition side of it, the report directly to the man himself. And in that conversation, it was 100% based on this, what Nevaeh just asked. It was about how do we help these foods, right? They have these things called MREs, where they just these terrible processed packages that they have to give to the military personnel, right, when they're out in the world, because they've got to have them in the weirdest places and be able to eat. How do we get more nutrition out of them because it's causing problems? And we're like, simple, Digestamil. And so we're working to actually put Digestamil in little pouches to be able to they sprinkle it on their food or put it in their water and drink before they eat this crazy processed meal. And so most important, delivery of nutrients. It's absolutely critical to be able to reduce the risk of disease, create more energy. And then two, what are the most important nutrients? And I'll kind of focus more for women. There is no doubt that fat soluble vitamins are very tough to absorb, and to pull the vitamins out of the food you eat and to ensure that the supplements you take are delivered, you have to be able to break those down and deliver them and break down the fats in the body to bind to that vitamin to get it absorbed. In other words, vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are all so critical, especially for women, that you want to be able to get them in. So one, you have to have them in the food or in the supplement. Two, you have to have fatty acids in the body that bind to that vitamin because it's only can be absorbed through fats, fat soluble, right? And the only way that happens is by the body digesting, breaking down the fats into fatty acids to bind with it. And to be able to pull the vitamin D out of the food, you have to digest the food down. So it still comes down to digestion to be able to deliver them. So the most important ones are fatty acids, breaking fats down because all hormones are made from fats, all hormones. So fat digestion. So one, and then nutrients, I would say the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. And for women, mineral wise, it would be calcium and zinc. And I think that calcium, obviously, we know of for women because of the bone density issue, but it goes further than that. The calcium does for women with hormones. And zinc is the one that's overlooked. It's the number one mineral for everyone in the world, but especially for women when it comes to immunity. And because your bodies are different when it deals with viruses, and because of that you need the zinc. And again, the best way to get zinc is digest the food. Most of the times there's zinc in food, but it doesn't get delivered because you don't digest.
So if you're saying fatty acids are probably the most important nutrients to be broken down in a woman's body for it to be able to function properly, what are the main foods that they need to be consuming for that to happen?
Raw fats. And so, the avocados is always number one on the list that we talk about because it's easy and people know about it. I'm a big fan, and Nebe, I probably remember growing up being raised on things called young coconuts. And that's what it's called, a young coconut. You have to go to, sometimes you can get them at the Walmart, but the smaller coconut where the white isn't fully, it's not thick and it's not fully formed, so it's more liquid and you drink it. MCT oil, medium chain triglyceride oil, it's a supplement that you can buy, but all it is coconut oil. It's much cheaper to get the coconut from that. Having salmon once in a while. I know that Nevaeh is really big on how often, on your plans, but it's once or twice a week. But having a salmon, which is the essential fatty acids, and also getting the protein is a great source of good fats. And the problem with this one is calorie wise, but I'm always been a big fan of raw milk. It's hard to fit in most people's programs when you're trying to create a calorie deficit. So it's not always an option, but I'm a big fan of it because of the healthy fats in the raw milk. And I'm heavily against processed milk, regular, dairy milk that's processed because the enzymes are destroyed. But those are some good fats to be able to, or foods to be able to get fats from.
Cool. So overall, best, most important nutrients to be getting absorbed for your caloric deficit or caloric surplus to work the way it should would be those essential fatty acids coming from raw avocado, raw nuts, raw milk, things along those lines. And then nutrient specific would be vitamins D, A, and K. Yeah, is that what you said? And
Okay.
then
Yeah.
also calcium and zinc.
Yep, absolutely. I think those are your top ones for women especially. And then I didn't mention extra virgin olive oil, but I'm a big fan of true extra virgin olive oil for fats. And all you have to do is look at the research of longevity. The healthiest, best skin, right? Lowest body fat, longest living people on the planet have olive oil in their diet, right? The Mediterranean people and all that. So we know olive oil is a big deal. It's just you need to get good olive oil and you have to make sure that it's, cold pressed and organic. But I'm a big fan of olive oil, and then any type of oil that is not a seed oil that when cooking has a high flash point. Avocado oil is good for that, things like that.
Cool.
But
Love it.
yes.
Thing also to remember too is that in excess, not in moderation, fitting into your macros is also going to be a problem. So consuming a fourth cup of olive oil just down the hatch in the morning isn't going to be beneficial on top of your other fats of the day, because if you're getting too many, then your body's not going to absorb it in the first place. So those macronutrients really comes into play when we're talking about the essential fatty acids, because the amount that you have really does determine how well your body's going to be able to break that down. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so now going on to our second point we talked about last week, cellular health versus surface level health, and how it's very important when you're trying to see those external and physical results that you're first focused on that cellular health happening. Because if you're not going to be able to maintain your results. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to be able to appreciate the results of maybe losing weight or gaining muscle if you feel crappy in the process. And so, as we're looking at that, what do you feel like is the most common thing that is usually being worked on cellularly before that switch happens to physical health? Meaning, is it usually visceral fat? Is it usually nutrient deficiencies? Is it usually vitamin or nutrient absorption? What's usually the number one thing you see in a woman's body that has to happen cellularly before that surface level or that physique change can happen too?
Yeah, great question. So obviously it's calorie deficit, number one, right? And I think that we overlook that because of the new research showing that a calorie is not a calorie, right? That we can take in 100 calories of a heavily processed food and it's going to cause more weight gain than 100 calories from a whole food. But the end of the day, it still comes to making sure we're in a calorie deficit. No plan on the planet works without that. And like everyone's GLP-1 caused this. No, GLP-1 made it so it's easier for you to get in a calorie deficit. Let's be real. And so I think that's number one. But what we've noticed the most over the decades, to answer that question, is an actual nutrient deficiency at the cell level. Because that nutrient deficiency, one nutrient could throw off your hormone balance, then your body stores fat. It could throw off your thyroid, your body stores fat, right? It doesn't, fatty acids aren't broken down. So what does it happens? It's not broken down all the way to fatty acids. So your body stores it as fat till it can figure out what to do with it. Um, all of these things from one little nutrient deficiency, and they're different nutrients. Iodine for the thyroid, right? Magnesium for the muscle, lipase for digest fats, vitamin D for your mental strength to be able to hang in there, and stick to your plan. And so, definitely nutrient deficiency. We've seen it the most with that, Nevaeh, with professional athletes, as you know, that all we did is fix a nutrient deficiency and they're like, oh, that's the greatest thing in the world. Their points went up, they're worth millions more dollars, and everyone's happy. And it was a nutrient deficiency from just checking their blood. We've seen with people that have felt terrible for years and they think they're doing everything right, kind of the theme of your webinar today. And it came down to they were doing most everything and it was one deficiency. And they're like, oh, that's the greatest thing in the world. And so it's usually that. And I think you all can relate to this, whether you're a trainer or just someone watching right now and by the way, the fact that everyone gets to be involved in these webinars is phenomenal. Shout out to Balance Bay because not everyone opens up this type of discussion with clients, right? They keep it themselves. And it's really awesome. But that's one of the problems with having hundreds, if not thousands, of eating plans out there today, or all these supplements that are out there. And people say it was a miracle. It's a miracle. Well, because for one person, what the missing puzzle piece was for them might be different than someone else, but someone gets results, right? That's in the public or it's a professional that doesn't isn't holistic, and all of a sudden they think, oh, everybody in the world, if all they did was take this one enzyme, this one product, this one this, or this, eating plan, they're going to be able to lose weight like I did and get the results like I did. And they don't realize that it's unique to the individual, that everyone probably has a different piece to the puzzle's missing. Most people have a bunch, right? Like their diet's just off. It's not one little thing. But yeah, that's the point of one little thing can set it off, but you need to know what it is. And that comes back to data.
I think that's super important to understand too, which we talk about with all of our girls. But if you're new here and we haven't talked about that, is that's one of the main reasons we run everyone's lab work is because everyone's is going to be different. We could give one person a supplement pack and it do the job, and the same person could take that same exact supplement pack and it not do what's needed because it didn't have the nutrients their body needed for it. And so that's one of the super big things to understand about results and seeing those results, like Doug said, is you can be doing the same thing someone else is, but if you're not filling those nutrient deficiencies cellularly first from what your body needs, you're not going to see the physical changes. So when we're talking about cellular versus physical, the number one thing that has to happen cellularly first before you can see those physical changes is nutrient deficiencies have to be filled, and that gap has to be filled. And then also what Doug said at the beginning too about how if you're not in a calorie surplus or a calorie deficit, depending on what your goals are, it's also not going to happen. And so that's another really big thing is a lot of the time we are convinced we're in a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus and we're not. And your body doesn't lie a lot of the time there. So as long as you know your body is you're filling nutrient deficiencies that your body's telling you you need and then you're in that deficit or that surplus, it's basically science from there. It has to respond. And so
Yeah.
that
Can I make a comment on that?
yeah.
We learned so much in the last 30 years, and you guys are in a tougher position than I was when I started. I truly could figure out a person's metabolic rate, put them on the right eating plan, caloric wise, get them in a small deficit and get great results every time if they followed it, no matter what, because there wasn't as many processed foods.
How long
Now,
this? Like 25 years ago, you're thinking?
yep,
25 years.
absolutely. Like it was so easy, guys, like truly easy. Like it was a rock star because it was like I do simple blood work, get their supplements, and get them on the eating plan, and they were set. But here's the problem today: it is that you can have one person that at 1,600 calories is able to lose weight, and that 1,600 calories is coming from good healthy foods, and then you put them on 1,600 calories, but some of that's processed food, right? That it's more processed. Then all of a sudden they're gaining weight on the same amount of calories, same person. Okay. And that's what the latest research shows. The problem is a processed food can't be digested. The body can't deal with it. Even if you overlook the toxins in that, or just a calorie, kcal, right? It's amount. Calories are simple. It's about burning and the amount of energy that comes from the burn. That's how we know how many calories are in a food. It's a process. In college, they teach you it's like putting in an oven and you go through that process to determine the calories. It's based on the burn. Processed foods don't burn. And it makes it so that the same calories causes, right, a greater increase in the body because the body can't break it down as well. And it turns out to be more calories the body has to deal with because it's dealing with the same thing over and over again. And I know it sounds funny, but the research is really strong on this. So for all of you, whether you're needing to accomplish your goals or you're looking at for your client, being able to understand that nutrient deficiency is the number one thing. Also, is understanding that processed foods and makes it so that nutrient deficiencies happen more, and you've got to deal with the processed food. That's why just start digesting it at first. That'll go a long ways, but then working them off of the processed foods is critical as a trainer nowadays, or as someone wanting to get results.
Love it. Love it. Super good. Okay, last kind of point that we talked about last week that we're going to dive into a little bit is why muscle changes everything. And that deeper understanding of why you have to be strength training and you have to have muscle in order to see the results that you want if you want them sustained. Not to say you couldn't crash diet for 2 weeks, 3 weeks and see something change, but you're not going to be able to sustain that and your body's not going to feel its best doing that. And you guys hear all of us talking, if whether it's on social media or you're one of our clients, about how important muscle is. And that's not just for for the physical changes. That's not just for how things look, it is for how your body is responding cellularly. And last week, Doug mentioned myokines and how when you are strength training and you are putting tension on the muscle, that chemical myokines is released, and its one job is to go in and balance your hormones, reduce inflammation, to be able to balance hormones so that signals can be sent a lot easier throughout the body. And that is one of the biggest things that I always like to talk about, with muscle being so important, is that side of things. And so when we're talking about myokines and strength training and the balance of hormones that comes from that, this is a pretty simple question, but every woman on a base level of health to have their hormones responding properly should be doing how much strength training a week at a base level? Like, what is the base minimum you should be strength training if you want the myokines to do their job how they should?
So great question. And I'm going to actually refer to a brand new study on that. But, the simple answer to that is a minimum of twice a week. Let's call it 45 minutes because the research is like, shows 30 to 45 minutes minimum. We're talking that's baseline. And so that's the answer to that question.
Do you feel like if you're saying baseline 2 days and then most optimal as possible, would you say closer to 4 to 5?
100%. 4 to 5 is what we want. 4 to 5 is what we want. But if you're like, hey, what do I, you know, minimum I need to do? So, for example, for all of you listening, or those of you who have clients in there, I would say, look, this for us to keep having growth and being able to reduce body fat and hormones balance, the worst case scenario week, you're on vacation or something, you got to find a way to at least get 2 good solid strength training workouts in. That's mandatory. But the program's going to be 4 to 5 because what we want is we want optimal result as fast as we can get it. And so that's what the research shows. Now, what's really cool is there was a brand new meta-analysis study. And for those of you that aren't trainers in here, what that means is it's really cool because it's a study that studies other studies. So it's not one little study and they only have this one study proving something. It's where they say, what are all the studies that this what I'm talking about right now was with women. One had to be women, right? And then it had to have all these parameters that they really had exercise programs that were true strength training and so on. And if they met all these parameters, it went into the study. So it's a systematic review and meta-analysis of a whole bunch of studies. So what they did, there's 126 studies that fit into this group. It involved over 4,000 women only, which most studies aren't on women, by the way. It's like 1 or 2% of the research is women. And so this was huge. And it was women from young adulthood through postmenopause. So it fits the gamut of about anyone that's on the call or that you'll train, right? Well, the largest analysis ever focused specifically on women and strength training. And it just came out. And what they found was that increased dramatically. The strength increased dramatically no matter what. Premenopausal, postmenopausal, young, that you can get stronger through anything. Oh, I can't get strength right now. I'm in the middle of a perimenopause or menopause or that. No, everyone can develop strength no matter what. That's what's really cool about it. Because yeah, it might be a little bit harder with the fat reduction and those types of things, somewhat a little bit based on that. But for everyone, we know everyone can build strength, right? That you can increase lean mass regardless of age. And the body fat decreased significantly in all groups that were doing strength training versus ones that weren't. And that was a big factor with it. The matter of the age, right, from 18 to 75. Um, and the other factor was it was never too late to begin. That they even had the 65 to 75-year-old women start strength training and automatically got huge hormonal balance benefits, right? Issues with pre or post menopause, all of those things. And it didn't reduce their ability to build muscle or lose fat. So this whole thing that it's, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Look, strength training helps to level the playing field. It's helped to level the playing field when there's hormonal disruptions, which they are throughout the entire woman's life. And the study was phenomenal. And it went into the reason that Nevaeh just mentioned, this thing that we didn't know about, right? When I was in MBA, we didn't have no clue that there was this thing called myokines. Myokines is basically a hormonal chemical in the body that's created from your muscle. And the more muscle you have, and then when you work that muscle, the body releases that chemical to balance hormones, to be able to keep your body anabolic, to say, hey, we need to burn fat. We need more energy to keep these muscles strong. For some reason, this person is living a lifestyle that their muscles need to be metabolically active. We better keep feeding them, which means you can eat more calories, right? And so is a huge study that was just phenomenal because the problem is many people say, well, it's harder for me because of my age, or I'm going through this or going through that. Look, the fact of the matter is that in all aspects of a woman's life, they can build muscle, reduce body fat by doing a good strength training program. And that was a really cool finding from the study. It kind of like gets rid of the excuses. And it really helps to, yeah, you might be having major problems right now with hormones and that, but let's get you strength training because that's going to help balance them just as well, if not more than about anything else you do.
Love it. So good. And I love that study too because it's across the board. And anytime we can make anything just simple and across the board for women, it really reduces the amount of decision fatigue and stress of like, am I doing it right? Is this what my body needs right now? And it's like across the board, everyone from every age needs to be strength training. Now, depending on what that strength training looks like, maybe that's a little bit different. But everyone, if you want your body to respond its best, to feel its best, you have to be strength training. And that study's cool because it can pay off for everyone. You can get stronger no matter what phase you're in and no matter what you're doing. So awesome. I love that. Okay, so as we're wrapping up here, if you have any questions you want me to ask Doug or you want us to answer about any of these things, put it in the chat right here. We'll answer a few questions, but we're going to wrap this up. And if there's any questions, we'll answer those at the end. So put them down there in that group chat. But an overall kind of recap of what we went over today. Number one being the specific nutrients that needs to be absorbed in a woman's body for a calorie surplus or a calorie deficit to be able to work properly is number one, those essential fatty acids. Yeah, the essential fatty acids being absorbed properly, avocados, olive oils, raw nuts, those things. Yeah, okay, cool. And then give us a rundown on the specific vitamins again: calcium, zinc, and then vitamins D, A, and K.
A, D, E, and K. A, D,
A,
and K, the fat soluble vitamins are the main, yeah.
cool. And then number two being when we went over what is the main thing that has to happen cellularly before you see that surface level health happen. Is that going to be nutrient deficiencies being filled in a woman's body, or else nothing can happen? A quick follow up question there. What do you find? How long do you find it usually takes once you're taking the right supplements that are being absorbed for your body to see those nutrient deficiencies be filled? What's like the minimum amount of time for that to start to happen?
Great question. So the simple answer is between 2 and 8 weeks. And the reason there's such a gap there, so like I would tell everyone, look, this might take up to a couple months before you really notice and see the difference, but it's based on how toxic the liver is, the kidneys, the thyroid. And so, if they've done some things alcohol wise, prescription wise, different things, or they're just, built up toxins, it's going to take a little bit longer because those nutrients are going to be used to fix that versus be used for that immediate energy and everything you got. So obviously you're going to have people that say, "Oh man, after second day I felt great," and they helped a lot. But you let them know that hey, the body's going to do this based on priorities. And I think if you're looking to improve your health or you're a trainer, that's one thing you want to teach people is like, look, doing things naturally means that as we do these things, your body's going to take the nutrition and do what's most important to it. And sometimes it's to fix something before it becomes a major issue, before it burns the body fat, right? Because burning the body fat might not be the most important thing to keep you alive today. It might be something else. You got to give it that time. And so I'd say, look, commit to at least 2 months, no matter what, and then you're going to start to see that. And usually it's a little bit before.
Love it. And then the last thing being muscle being extremely important for you to see the results you want. And that new study that just came out showing that anyone can increase strength, anyone at any age should be strength training. But the biggest thing is that you should always, always, no matter what, be getting at least two strength training days in a week if you just want to be at the healthiest you can at a baseline level, and then closer to 4 to 5 if you want to be at that optimal level where you're creating something new and different happening more than even just your physique, just on that hormonal level.
Absolutely. And one other thing from that study, which is really important as to why you need a trainer, is the only thing that varied was the type of strength training.
Mm,
So, later on, as they get older and some might already have a little bit of osteopenia or osteoporosis, the bones are a little bit, the strength training is a little different than it is younger, where they're more, you can do whatever you want, jumping wise and craziness, and it's important to have a trainer to know where you're at and to make the program so that you actually are increasing your health and longevity and bone strength and metabolism versus being injured or hurting it. So always, always, always number one coach you should have in the world is a health coach. Number two should be your financial coach, and then three, life coach if you need it. But strength, your health coach should be number one.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions in here. If you end up having questions, feel free to let us know. Thank you, Doug, for going over anything. Anything else you want to wrap up with? Any last words of advice?
Only on the question thing. I go to masterminds every month and have for decades. And I spend a lot of money to get in rooms. And I learned really quick that the most important thing I can do is ask questions. And so I would highly recommend you all, as you get people that come on here, whether it's just Nevaeh or other people, that you're sitting there going, okay, what is it that I would like to have answered that would help with this client or with myself or my business? And you step out and get over the fear of asking questions. Questions in the right rooms creates the biggest success and progress of anything else you can do in life. It's one, getting in the room, you guys are already there. Two, asking the questions or the favors, and ask. And every one of the best seminars I go to and masterminds, these masters, these guys that are the billionaires or the top of their game, they're always like, hey, what's your takeaway? What is it you'd like to accomplish? Ask it now, and someone in this room is going to probably have an answer to help you. So that would be my only thing, is that I'd recommend, when I get in groups like this, when all these professionals and you all are there and there's not questions, it'd be like, oh, step out of your comfort zone, step out of the comfort zone, use the time to really help you and help your clientele by asking, 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 and that'll benefit your life the most.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you guys all for being here. And if you have questions, if you're not already a part of our community, feel free to reach out to me, Gabriella, Dakota, any of the coaches that are on this call. And we would be happy to chat with you. But we hope you have an awesome weekend. Thank you, Doug. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Keep